Hey, producer Paul here, and the following is from a recent presentation that Doug gave at a mastermind. Meetings like this are one of the many perks of joining a group like Wealthy Gym Owners or the Wealthy Gym Accelerator. For more information, check out wealthygymowners.com or hit the link in the description.
All right, so what I am going to talk about is marketing in 2026, spend a little bit of time on what I think is not going to work in 2026 marketing and what I think is going to work. Just to set the tone on the local advantage, I will not speak to online. If you run an online business, that's great, but I'm purely brick and mortar. And so I will talk to you about growing your brick and mortar gym. This could apply because marketing is marketing, but this is purely speaking to brick and mortar facilities. So in most markets, you are, drop a pin at your facility and you are hitting 3 to 10 mile radius, right? You should know that. I would recommend that you download a CSV file of all the addresses of your clients, upload it into chat, and ask it how far your average client travels. Because if I ask you right now, most of you are going to do what's called wagging, which is wild ass guessing. And that nowadays, in most facets of business won't work. You really need to have that dialed in. And I start with that because this is a huge advantage, right? A huge advantage that you only, like Pat was talking about with this neighborhood, if I'm only going after this neighborhood, that is like literally the perfect example of putting blinders on. And it's like I would go to every house, every business, and it becomes just a mission to get to every single house and every single business. But if you're just wagging it of how far people travel to you, then when we get into the strategy, the tactical side of this, I think you're just trying to shotgun it rather than isolate in. So I would get crystal clear and use that to your advantage of I'm only attracting people in this radius. That obviously has to do with your paid advertising target, but in my opinion, more importantly, when we get into the local strategies, more the guerrilla-based marketing, it gives you a targeted list of where to focus on. So that is something that you should know, and it is a big advantage to only have to focus on that radius. The other thing about local marketing is, of course, most major brands are not doing this kind of stuff that I'm going to talk about. They are much more comfortable, and I say comfortable both financially and in strategy, to just pay more boatload in real estate and more boatload in Facebook ads, Meta, etc. So, a typical franchise that you may be competing with, Pat talked about the real estate piece of it, but they're also spending, for context, we're in pre-sale right now of location 3. I'm spending about $4,000 a month right now on Facebook ads just for that location. And then $3,000 for our other 2 locations. So collectively, I'm spending about 10 grand a month on Facebook ads right now. If you're not doing that, and you're not doing the local marketing I'm talking about today, I will destroy you. Hopefully you can realize that. That is what you are competing against. So I'm not asking you, many of you cannot do a Facebook ad budget that big, and that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is a lot of what I'm going to share today does not cost any money. It just costs you leaving your computer and going out in the community. But if you are not doing that and your competitors are me spending 10 grand a month on Facebook, if I can simplify, that is why we're not growing. It's because of that. So I know it's a little bit harsh, but that hopefully is an eye-opener to say, ideally you get to a point, like most of my clients in Project 500 in Boardroom, we get to a point where we can run both, meaning we have a healthy ad budget and we're doing some local marketing stuff. And you can kind of seesaw a little bit. If you want to spend more on ads, you can kind of be a little lazy over here. If you're not spending as much on ads, you got to be more aggressive here. But for many of you, if you're only doing 10, 20 grand a month, I'm very empathetic that you don't have a $3,000 ad budget, which means you got to do more of this stuff, okay? But also, the big brands aren't doing this stuff. And then when we get local marketing, everybody thinks I'm going to talk about the face-to-face, go out and visit a business, but local marketing does exist online and offline. So I'm going to break it down online, what you can do online locally, and what you can do offline, okay? Let's first start with, let's kind of push aside what I think is not going to work. From a mindset perspective, I don't like to spend much time on this because I frankly just want to focus more on what is working or what I think will work. But I want to be clear, these are things that I think will not work. They're not working now, and I personally, maybe Todd will change my mind after lunch here, but there's some of the stuff that with the AI stuff, I just, in our space, don't see it in the next 6 to 12 months. Examples of that. We've had several clients try using AI to do your lead follow-up, meaning the AI will come in and respond to your leads and book your appointments for you. And what ends up happening in my experience with that is you spend a boatload of money for that agency and you get nobody to actually walk through your door. So this sweatshirt, by the way, was made from a boardroom client made it for me because I kept telling them you just got to get people through the door, and that's like the famous gym owner saying is I just need to get people through the door. AI is at the point where it can conversate with people, but in our experience so far, when we get into lead follow-up, it's not to the point where people are just ignoring it. Or we had a client where all of his leads were just responding yes, and then not showing because they learned that yes stops the automation. So not a fan of booking appointments automatically, not a fan of I'm going to talk a lot about your reputation online today, locally. And I don't even know the software that does this. Somebody probably does, and I could care less because I have no interest in using it, which is it's an automatic reply to a comment that says, check your DMs. And the reason why I don't like that is because, Mary, Susie, Martha are reading those comments, and that is now like somebody will respond to something completely random on a comment, and there's these bots that will come in and say, check your DMs, and it automatically messages you something, right? I'm introducing these things. You may or may not do these things. You may not even know what they are. I will tell you, don't chase that shiny object. I don't think it's there. Other things that won't work, continue to not work, are what I call vanity metrics. So focusing on things like how many likes you got, how many views you got, how many things you got on your social stuff. There's one thing I care about in this business. Number one, I would say. Number two is obviously client experience. But number one is getting people in the door. The only thing I'm doing online is to get you in the door. That is the entire goal. If you run a brick and mortar gym, the entire goal of doing anything online is to get them in your facility. So I don't do any fancy Instagram reels. I don't do any of that. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I think what I share are strategies that I think will and have worked better. So my thought is if I'm evaluating my time and I'm spending any of this time on these what I call vanity metrics, like posting fancy reels on Instagram, if that doesn't get people in the door, I'm going to move very quickly. Like Pat talked about Tuesday email, if it doesn't work, Tuesday night email. Like if this doesn't work by Monday, I'm moving to something else on Tuesday, right? All right, last couple things online that won't work. We had a client, they're not here today so I can pick on them and I won't use their name. We had a client that they continued to have trouble generating leads from their Facebook, and they were running their own ads. And so finally I was just like, I need to figure out what's going on. So I went into their ads library, and in order to get to their ads library, I went to their page. Maybe there's a better way, but I just go to their page, go to transparency, and you can see if they're running ads. So every single one of their posts on their Facebook page was a generic Canva picture that they probably grabbed from AI or grabbed from somewhere of not a client. Maybe it was like, the fit mom doing the textbook battle rope or whatever. Everything was Canva, like generic. These are clearly not their clients. And their ad images were generic. So if you are going to spend any time on content production in 2026, I believe your content should be spent on showcasing your actual clients that are in your building. And this goes back to the local advantage. Orange Theory is using the stock image of nobody, when I see this, knows that client. If we're all in our local town and I'm getting OT's ads, I don't recognize that client because it's the franchise, it's like the stock avatar client. But if we're all in a local town and I post a picture of, Martha down the street, you might know Martha and then be like, hey, guess what? Comment, right? Or maybe you know Martha because you go to church with her. So then on Sunday hey, I saw you on the ad from Sperling. Tell me about that place. And then all of a sudden she's inquiring. So the generic content days, I think, are long gone. Last couple things that I want to make sure and again, this is like, don't waste time on this because you guys only have so much time. So anytime you spend on this stuff, I think is time that you could be spending on the things that actually work. Ignoring reviews and reputation management. So I have a little bit more on this under the working. But we know nowadays that 70% is the most recent stat I found in prepping for this. 70% of buyers read reviews before contacting a business. So that sounds obvious, but let's think about how a buyer works, right? You're running a Facebook ad and you're like, the Facebook ad's not getting any clicks. The Facebook ad's not working. The way I think about it is, I don't even care if the Facebook ad's working if my website leads are increasing, because most likely what's happening is they are seeing your Facebook ads, leaving the Facebook platform, going over to Google and typing in Joe's Gym, and then reading reviews about Joe's Gym. So ignoring reviews and ignoring reputation management, I have some stats below. I think a big opportunity in the online space for local brick and mortar is optimizing your Google business profile, paying attention to your reviews. I have some stats later on about getting your clients to post reviews with a picture of them, so not just words, but a picture review has like a 2.7x on getting you to rank higher. So just making sure we spend some time on our local online reputation. And then, of course, chasing trends instead of owning your local niche. Pat talked about that a little bit, but I want one avatar and one model. I've beat this drum so hard, I feel like I say it almost every day. But this is like proof that I, until proven differently, am right when I say this. So everybody in boardroom, for clarity, everybody in boardroom does at least $50,000 a month, and we have probably 5 or 6 that are doing over $1 million. Everyone in boardroom does one model. They have one avatar and one model. They don't have 6 avatars that they help, 3 different types of classes. For some reason, and I was there, trust me, I was there with you doing all these different things, but for some reason we think if we help more different types of people and we run like small group and personal training and sports performance and all these different things, that means more people. What that means is you're mediocre at everything. And so thus, you don't get good at anything. You hire people that have to deliver different types of services, and we never grow. So I, until proven differently, will die on the throne of one model, one avatar. And we have living proof of this. Jared, can I pick on you for a second? So Jeremy is a former employee of mine. He was a coach at Sperling, went off into the collegiate world, then came back and has brick and mortar gym. When Jeremy first started, he was working a W-2 and at the university and had let's call it a gig on the side, right? Can I conservatively say that your income this year, just this year, 5x from what you were making at UNE, personal income? 10x, personal income. Who do you help?
Soccer players.
Soccer players. What are your hours?
We're open from like 4:30 to 9.
That's it. The kid's going to make a couple $100,000 this year, personally. And he helps soccer players from 4 to 9 at night. That's incredible. And that is proof in this room of one model, one avatar. So I just want to, I can teach you all the marketing tactics in the world, but if you're trying to chase everybody and then you're trying to put them into multiple models, it doesn't work. So again, I'm like lover of breaking down models. So if you want to simplify your model and pick one, I will certainly help you with that, but it makes your marketing so much easier. Like, we run his ads and we run them to parents of soccer players. How easy is that? It's like basketball. It's like, here's the layup, right? Because I only have to talk to parents of soccer players. I don't even have to talk to parents of sports performance. I literally single avatar. So am I telling you to go work with soccer players from 4 to 9? No, hopefully you don't take it like that. What I am telling you to do is really isolate who your avatar is and what is the one model you're going to serve them in, okay? All right, let's talk about what will work. I beat the hyper-focused target market. I'll post this, just like Pat said, I'll post this in the group after the talk. Okay, so I talked about hyper-focus. Let's talk about the adult hyper-focus, what that looks like, because sports performance is it's a niche in itself, right? But let's talk about the adult world. So we had a boardroom client last week. Good on them. We had our meeting last week down in Texas. They've already made this change, which is amazing. But I kind of threw a little bit of a jab at the whole we help busy adults. Right? Everything in the Gen Pop world right now is we help busy adults. I will tell you, in my experience, as you continue to niche down, hopefully, the we help busy adults is not enough. So does everybody. Everybody helps busy adults. Every adult is busy. I got 4 kids. I got half as many as Fred, and I'm still friggin' busy and running around with a chicken in my head cough. And when people are like, I have 1 or 2 kids that's busy, I'm like, fuck you, I got 4. He's got 7. It's busy. Everybody helps busy adults. So I would niche down further than busy adult. What does that mean? Are you going to help moms going through menopause? Are you going to help people that are post-PT? I don't know. That's on you and your passion, but it makes marketing extremely, I'm not going to say easy, but very simple if we can only talk to one person. So for example, at our gym, we only talk to people that are over the age of 50 and are intimidated by the typical gym. And that's our entire message. You hate the regular gym, maybe you've never been to the regular gym, you have whatever. And I don't care if you steal that avatar, but everything is dictated based upon this. So when I look at my marketing tactics, I'm not looking at it like this. I'm saying, okay, where do all the 50-plus-year-olds go to grab coffee? That's where I'm going to be. Where do they grocery shop? That's where I'm going to be. What restaurants do they visit? That's what gift cards I'm raffling off. Everything becomes so much easier rather than I got this wide array of people, and now when I go to execute local strategies, I'm like, where do I go, right? So, niche, that will continue to be a strength of yours if you do it into 2026. I'm not going to talk a ton about Meta. I will say everybody in Boardroom and probably half of Project 500 run paid ads. I think if you're not running paid ads, even at a small budget, you're missing out on leads that are coming in without you having to do much. And this is a business. Fred and I were talking about this yesterday. Like, the con of this industry is it's such a low barrier to entry. And then people don't realize, like, most businesses, like, I'm guessing this room was not cheap to build out, right? He had to invest probably a couple $100,000 to build this room out. And so in our business, we're like, yeah, we're just going to try to like bootstrap it. And trust me, I get it. I was there. But at some point, you do have to leverage a return and say, I'm going to devote $1,000 and hope that I get back $1,200. And then I'm going to go spend $1,200 and hope I get back $1,500. And then that snowball, then eventually you're $3,000 for $5,000 and you keep trading up, right? That is investing in business. And I think that is in order to stay competitive in 2026, most brick and mortar gyms are investing in their business. So let's talk about Meta. Other things on Meta, the only other thing I will say broadly is we do see a continual effort to make sure that you are not just running offers to your audience. What I mean by that is you are not just running join my program. That will burn out your audience. So things like video testimonials, things like educational posts, infotainment, whatever, right? They have to see other stuff. And you need to make a choice in 2026 whether you're going to do this or you're going to pay somebody to do it. I think if you're not doing Meta and you want to have a business that's north of 25 grand a month, 30 grand a month, you're missing out probably on half, if not 3/4 of the potential leads coming in the door. All right, Google, your Google profile. So here's those stats. 2.7 times the views when you update your Google profile at least weekly. You rank 1.7 times higher when you actually take the time to respond to reviews. And there's a 35 to 45% lift in profile interaction when you have reviews that have photos attached to them. So it's not the stats that matter. What matters is, are you actually growing the number of reviews you have? Are you taking the time to respond to your reviews? Does your Google profile actually have photos of your clients? When was the last time you updated those photos, right? So spend a little time on that. Other stuff online, website. You can check out our website. I think it's decent. Our website gives us 20 to 40 leads a month, so it's decent enough to get that. I will say, I'm guaranteeing that most of those leads are from, so I talk a lot in Boardroom about the flywheel concept. So I'll introduce it to you here. Most of you understand it as a whole with the flywheel. But in marketing, in fitness marketing, how the flywheel works is if I'm only running Facebook ads, let's say my flywheel is moving this fast. I'm only running Facebook ads. I can spend more and get it to spin faster, right? And the faster it spins, the more leads it spits out, right? But here's where the flywheel really kicks off. I'm going to introduce in a minute here a bunch of local tactics. Let's say I install 3 of those local tactics. So I got a raffle going off at the coffee shop. I am visiting 3 to 5 businesses a month with gift certificates, and I'm running ads. Now that flywheel is spitting out leads, and magically my website gets more leads. Why? Because you're not that popular, myself included, that somebody just randomly ends up on your website. They end up on your website because they searched for you, right? And so they're searching for you because they happen to scroll past your ad. They're waiting in Starbucks and they see your ad. They're in the local Joe Schmo coffee shop and they see your fishbowl. You come to me and you're like, Doug, that fishbowl didn't work. I only got 10 leads and none of them converted. And I'm like, that still worked. I guarantee you, because A, if you stay on those follow-up of those 10 leads, one of them will come in the door. And B, it just continues to feed the flywheel, right? We cannot look at things as a silo to say, this strategy worked, this strategy didn't. I think about it as these strategies are going into the flywheel, and the more that I put in, the faster that flywheel spins, and the more it spits out. So your website, I'm not saying to spend a ton of money on your website, but your website should be strong for lead conversion. So if you go to our website, feel free to, it has only 2 things you can do, which is you can figure out what our scheduling pricing is, or you can talk to a trainer. It doesn't talk anything about what we do. It doesn't talk anything about who our team is. It doesn't talk anything about small group personal training. It says, hey, if you're 50 plus and hate the gym, talk to a trainer. Again, there's other examples. I think you can, would not spend a lot of time or money on rebuilding your website, but I would optimize it for lead conversion, which means simple. It's a bulletin board. This sounds like so silly that I have to say this in 2025, but it needs to be mobile friendly. I still go onto some of the sites that are not mobile friendly. The scheduling and pricing tab is probably, I'm going to say, one of the top 3 things that we installed in gyms this year, which is a simple scheduling and pricing button that they click at the top right, because those are the top 2 things that your prospects care about, schedule and price. And so when they click on that, you'll see, and you can go through the flow if you want. I'll text Kenna after this and tell her that she might get a couple of random gym owners going through the funnel. But it will give you a PDF. The PDF is called an info packet. Many of you have installed this. The info packet gives you testimonials and a frequently asked question in a PDF. One of the frequently asked questions answers, here's our range of pricing, here's our schedule. Obviously, the magic of all this is it's a lead, and you're going to follow up with them, right, and try to get them in the door. But I would make sure your website is optimized, a lot more social proof. Many of you lack real social proof. So social proof would be video testimonials, screenshots of Google reviews. I'm not generally a fan of the basic written testimonial. That's better than no social proof, but I would try to get video testimonials, and I like a screenshotted Google review over just a Canva written testimonial. And the reason why is the authenticity component of it. Frankly, I could just take a bunch of words and throw them onto Canva today, and who knows if that's a real review or not. And I think the consumer, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, also feels that. So I think it's more powerful just to screenshot your Google reviews, video testimonials, actual things that the brain, when they see it, knows that it's a real review, a real testimonial. The reviews, so if you scroll to the bottom of our site and click on stories, and all of you doing this right now, the website's probably going to load slow. And there's 30 of you on the internet right now. But if you go down to stories, I care more about the scroll factor of testimonials. So nobody's going to take the time to read these. Let's be very clear. Nobody's going to take the time to watch a 3-minute video testimonial. I am trying to have a wow factor. so that when they get to my website and they scroll and they're like, holy crap, that's a lot of people that look like me, I should probably check this place out. They're not taking the time to read it. So I wouldn't let that slow you down. Okay, let's talk about last couple things online, then we'll get to some offline strategies. With your social media, so I'm by no means a social media expert, but I try to pay attention to what gets us clients from social media. Because again, that's what we care about with marketing is clients. So aside from paid ads, there's a couple different things that I think are worth spending time on. And again, I'm introducing to you hopefully a toolbox. I don't expect you to use all of these tools. I expect you to pick some that you like and some that you don't like. If you don't pick any, well, then that's on you. But I don't expect you to install all of this stuff. If you do like being on social, I think the best time spent on social is in Messenger and in local community groups. So examples of local community groups, you all, whether you know it or not, all of your towns have multiple local community groups where all the parents hang out and bitch about something, right? Well, what I'm looking for is I'm just being a fly on the wall in those groups. I'm contributing where I can, and I'm messaging anybody that I think brings up something relevant that I can help with. So this is not something that you can schedule. This is not something that if you're, I'm guessing Ron is not going to do this strategy. Maybe Abby will, right, his team member, but Ron's not going to because Ron doesn't love social media. But if you are on social media and you find yourself just scrolling and posting and you're like, I'm not getting any clients from this is how you get clients, aside from paid. So in these Facebook groups, what we do is if I can contribute, then I contribute. So an example would be, let's say in my local town, somebody says, hey, do you have a handyman? I'm renovating a bathroom. Anybody have a handyman recommendation? Well, I have about 3 or 4 handyman that I use. That has nothing to do with the gym. Absolutely nothing. Here's Joe Schmo. I used him for this job. He's great. That's it. And you're all like, what the heck does that have to do with growing a gym? I just want everybody in my town to know that I own a gym for people that are 50 plus. Because inevitably, people are creepers. And so they will see my message, they'll thumbs up it, and then they'll go click on my profile. And they'll see that I own Sperling Fitness. And then they'll end up on Google and Google Sperling Fitness. And maybe their mother is a potential client. That is how marketing works, right? And it's not like this is not direct response. This is not, I send 3 messages and get 1 client. This is just a way, in my opinion, it's a way of acting and how to best spend time on social, because it can be a time suck if you don't spend it this way. So groups, be a contributor. Basically, when they're scrolling, I want them to see my name, commenting, engaging. I want to be the mayor in that town. Now, I'm not commenting on, who should win this political race or whatever. I'm not touching that stuff. But if I can be a contributor to the local community, then I will contribute. Of course, every once in a while, somebody will say, hey, do you have a great physical therapist you recommend? Or, hey, do you have a personal trainer recommend? Those are layups, right? Everybody thinks of those as the ones that you're looking for. Of course, you comment in that, you message those people. I'm not saying those aren't good, because they are, but they're further along, and there's a lot less of that and more of like a, hey, where's your go-to coffee shop, right? So just be a presence in those, and don't be afraid to DM people. These are called warm introductions. Warm introductions. I'm going to guess, I don't know the number, but if I were to guess, probably at least a half dozen of Project 500 clients come in over the last 12 months from DMing either me or Pat. That's probably higher, right? But like they'll see my content, they'll send me a DM and they'll say, hey, what about this? Or hey, I like that. And I'll just say thanks. And then they see another piece of content. Like that, cool. And eventually it's like, hey Doug, can you tell me more about what you do? Right? And it moves them along. It's not an instant transaction, but it moves them along. And it's the same thing with brick and mortar. It's the same thing. So anytime I can move a conversation from a comment section to Messenger, I will always do that. Always, always. And then as far as what you're posting organically, the only thing I would say is most of us will always benefit from telling more stories. So posting testimonials, posting reviews, posting clients holding up their first day picture, first day board. This is something I install with Project 500 clients, hold up a board that says, today's my first day. It's the highest converting, one of our highest converting images always, because it's your ideal client in a picture, non-intimidating, and we just flood that with social media. If you want to take that a step further, you tag that client or you text that picture to the client and say, hey, I just shared this on social media, take a screenshot, send them a text, would you mind sharing this? So you can take it multiple layers, but in my opinion, that is how you use organic social, not just like scrolling and posting random. All right, last two things online before we go offline. Email and text. Obviously, we follow the king of email. The only thing I will add to anything that Pat says on email is you all need to tell more stories. Most of your emails are generic, boring, and I have no reason to open them. And that's not an insult other than hopefully a kick in the butt to change your emails. So your power in local is you help people every day. That is your power. There is very few businesses that help people, that change lives. You literally change people's lives. If I walk into the coffee shop, they did not change my life. Maybe it gave me a little boost, but they didn't change my life. You change people's lives, so share that. So I'm not a fan of the, here's 3 tips for low back pain, here's nutrition this, fitness that. I'm not a fan of those emails because, frankly, nowadays, they can search that on their own, and that's not what they like. So here's what I would do if you were looking to like scale this, even though that's not really the term I would use. Maybe put a little AI behind this. Here's what I would do. If you're like, well, I don't want to have to write a story every single time I send an email. So what I would do is I would take all your testimonials, all your reviews, everything social proof, and I would dump it into ChatGPT. Then I would take the emails that Matt provides, and I would dump those in. Now you have a story with some content, and that fed together will spit out some halfway decent emails. So the email structure that I recommend using is either a point story lesson or a pain, agitate, solve. And again, I don't expect you personally, like given your stage of business, I do not expect you every morning to be cracking open your laptop and writing emails. You just don't have that time. But you could certainly sit down once a month, twice a month, and block off and schedule 12 of these, 15 of these, right? So there's got to be a story. The PSL is a point story lesson. So introduce a point, a concept, whatever, low back pain. The story is Martha, one of your clients who struggles with low back pain. And the lesson is, here's what happens when you work with us. Here's the takeaway, right? Pain, agitate, solve is identify the pain, pour salt on the wound, agitate it, make them say, ooh, yeah, that's me. Yep, oh, yep, you got me there. That's also me, right? Add some depth and detail to it, and then solve it, i.e., here's how she came out of it, here's how we helped her, blah, blah, blah. So they're story-based, they're not education-based. All right, your text, I'm still blown away. We even got Mr. Rigsby texting. Like, you all get his text, right? The email guy is now also texting. So if you all are not texting your list, you are missing out on I have my stat here, 69% of people would prefer a text message from an unfamiliar brand. 69% would prefer to communicate via text. So 2/3 of our market would prefer to communicate via text. Now, I think I'm pretty strong opinionated about your follow-up process. I think your follow-up process should be 3-pronged, meaning you do calls, you do emails, and you do texts. And once they reply to one of those, now they've told you how they like to communicate. We were talking about this last night at dinner. If any of you need to communicate to us as coaches, and I'm only going to speak for myself, but I believe the rest of the coaching team has the same belief, you email us. That's how we all prefer to communicate. The reason why we like email is because if Keith sends me a text, right? Keith's in Project 500, he's got my phone number, he sends me a text. If I'm at Starbucks today, I read the text, I may not be in a spot where I can answer him, but I've now read it and I'm on with my day. So I now forget about Keith. I practice something called inbox zero, which means I do not go to bed until my inbox is empty. The inbox is very linear. My brain is very linear. So if Keith sends me an email, he will get an answer before I go to bed. Guaranteed. It's never happened that I've missed it. So if you're trying to sell me, you're going to call me, you're going to text me, and you're going to email me. If you call me, I'm not going to answer. If you text me, I might read it and not answer. And you email me, and I will answer. And so I'm not saying to email and think that all your leads are going to email. But each of us has our own preferences, right? So I'm going to text, I'm going to email, I'm going to call. In my follow-up, in my marketing, etc. And once they respond, I'm going to I teach our gyms, marry the method. So you marry the method, which means I'm going to try everything, all three, until you respond. Once you respond, that is now how I communicate with you, because you've shown me that's how you prefer to communicate. Just because I like to email, if I'm trying to sell you and you're texting, I'm on text. If you're on Facebook Messenger and I don't want to just pull you right off of Facebook Messenger. You all know Jonathan, right? Jonathan Suarez. We were making fun of him last week. He was down in Fort Worth. Jonathan loves Facebook Messenger. He loves it. He sends me messages like 11:30 at night with like pictures of a scoreboard. And I'm like, I thumbs up it, right? But that's his communication platform. So if I need to get a hold of Jonathan, I'm going to send him a Facebook message. I'm not going to email him. He might take 3 days to answer an email, but he'll answer a Facebook message like that. So I share those examples not to say do that, because not everybody's like that, but to understand when we follow up with people, we got to make sure we're hitting all three. And you all know the one that you're the worst at. Everybody is, it's not you. You're not unique, which is calls. So I like using case studies because these are real gyms that have real change that frankly help me reinforce what I teach actually works. So we have a client in Boardroom. He's from a size standpoint, our highest revenue generating gym. That does not mean he's the most profitable, but he's the highest generating. He'll push almost $2 million this year in revenue. I say that because he's got a very large business with lead volume. When we first started working together, he was not calling his leads. Just text, email, automated, go. We installed a system that every day he's going to call his leads. And guess what happened? He went from 20-ish% of leads converting to 40%. And last year he did 1.2, 1.3. This year he'll do 1.8. Is it only the lead follow-up? Probably. Not much else changed. He took 2 out of 10 people and moved it to 4 out of 10 people by calling his leads. So do not measure your lead by their answering the phone, yay or nay. Most people say calling leads doesn't work because they don't answer the phone. That is not true. What the measurement you want to look for is how many leads came in your door. I will take a bet with all of you that if you spent the rest of this year calling your leads every day, the percentage of leads that came in your door would go up at least 10%. Because it authenticates your local brand. That is a competitive advantage, is they will hear your voice. I have a pretty strong tone, as you might know. I can sell you through a voicemail, right? I can build excitement. I can't do that. No matter how many emojis I attach to a text, I cannot do that in a text, right? So I'm going to listen to the voicemail, and then maybe I'm like, ooh, that sounds awesome. Let me now answer that text. Let me go find that buried email in my inbox, right? All it does is bring the other 2 platforms higher up in responses. All right, let's talk about offline. We'll go through referrals first, how to get more referrals. So when I start with new gyms, I always ask them, what do you do for marketing? They say word of mouth and referrals. And I say, great, that means you do no marketing. So word of mouth will happen organically. And I personally am not going to put my family's livelihood in the hands of other people hoping that they talk about my business. That is word of mouth, and I will never count on word of mouth. Hopefully you're good at what you do, which I'm sure you are, and you get word of mouth. But referrals are something that you do have to facilitate. You do have to have a system for generating referrals. So There are a couple what I would consider to be basics. If you don't have in place, I would recommend you install. The first one is a point of sale ask, which means point of sale is that at the moment they sign up, that is the high of the high. That is the most excited they will ever be. Many of you don't realize this, but exercise is hard and most people hate it. So as soon as they get in your ecosystem, they now have to work. They now have to leave their nice cozy house and come to your gym, and they hate it. So if you go to them after 3 months, 6 months, even if they're loving it, they're less likely to refer. The highest moment of referral is when somebody is at the peak of just starting. You all know this. Your long-term clients don't refer, right? It's like their ecosystem, their community. They don't want to put new people into it. They're like, this is my space. New people refer. So we need to capitalize on that. If we wait too long and we ask for referrals down, I'm not saying they don't happen, but they happen less frequently. So the easiest thing to do is anybody that signs up, you give them a 7-day guest pass. Just make it on Canva, little postcard, stick it in their welcome bag or hand it to them when they sign up and say, hey, if I'm working with a Gen Pop, I'm going to say something like, hey, this is new, this is scary, it's intimidating. How about you bring a friend with you for the next 7 days? And you give it to them, they scan a QR code, they fill out a form, you follow up with them like every other lead. Now, this is a volume game. We typically get 1 or 2 back a month. So we're handing out probably an average of 20 to 30 a month and getting back 1 or 2. But 1 or 2 clients in this business is pretty valuable, right? Pretty valuable. The other key with your point of sale is you have to nudge them. You have to nudge them. So in your onboarding sequence, when you are onboarding somebody and they get your automated text and emails, typically around day 7, day 10, somewhere around there, send them a simple text that says, who did you give your 7-day guest pass to? Don't say anything else. Don't say like, this is what it's for. Hey, it's Doug at Sperling Fitness. Who did you give your, no, just a simple text. Who'd you give your 7-day guest pass to? And you will get responses to that that's like, oh, I totally forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. Or I gave it to so-and-so. And then obviously your work is to reply to that and move that forward. So if they said, oh, I gave it to my sister, cool. Do you mind doing a 3-way text intro with you and your sister? So now we're on a 3-way thread. And now I can move that conversation forward. Other things you can do for referrals is that same concept, but in distribution to your current clients. So easy ones would be like a VIP pass, give a month, get a month, right? You got to put different wrapping papers on them, but they're all the same thing. It's just a postcard. I like oversized postcards, 6 by 11. They're pretty cheap to print. Make them on Canva. Make them look pretty. Like that is, if that's not a skill set of yours, hire somebody for $10 on Fiverr. Make it look pretty, little QR code. Hand them out to clients and say, listen, we're trying to add a couple more people to these time slots. If you know anybody that would be a great fit, here's a VIP pass, here's a whatever, right? Less about, in my experience, we've tried every tactic. We've tried 7-day passes, 14-day passes, give a month, get a month, fill in the blank. They all work. The result is in the volume. The volume, that's true for most of this stuff. The result is in the volume. Let me give you an example. Our last location that opened up in June, we did a pre-sale strategy, which means we're trying to get people to join before it's open. And we had postcards printed. We had about, I think Josh printed 500 postcards. And he's like, wow, how am I going to get out 500 postcards? It's a lot of postcards. And we're going around to businesses, dropping them off, introducing ourselves, blah, blah, blah. And he got out 500. And it was hard to attribute, I don't know if we got anything from the postcards. So this time around, we're in pre-sale, and I said, let's print 5,000 and see what happens. Because I don't think it's the postcard. I think it's that we only handed out 500. So now we're going to hand out 5,000. Of course, he's shitting his pants about how am I going to hand out 5,000 of these, right? So my point is, for most of the stuff on the offline stuff, it is volume. So handing out 2 referral cards is not going to grow your business. If you have 100 clients and you hand out 100 4 times a year, that will grow your business, right? So this stuff, you're exchanging money right? So you're not spending a lot of capital on this campaign, right? Postcards, 25 cents, 30 cents, 50 cents, right? Cheap. So you're not spending a ton of money, and in order to make up for that, you spend it in time, effort, volume, distribution, right? So that's some stuff on referrals. You take those same things and you can apply it to business relationships. So this is going back to your avatar. This is where it really helps you dial things in. So if you have your avatar super dialed in, you have your radius super dialed in, now I have a list of every business, and this is where AI can help. I'm all for using AI in this stuff. I want a list of every business in this mile radius where my clients visit and work. And they're two separate lists. Where I visit, coffee shops, retail, spa, etc., versus where I work. And for some of you, your clients don't even work, right? So I want to know where people visit, and I'm going to make sure that I get to those businesses. And I think about it, the way I coach this is just come in and be Santa Claus. Everybody's like, I want a JV with these businesses. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Like, these business owners don't have time for that. They're not going to do that. They're just trying to survive that day, ring that cash register a couple times. They're not going to take an hour and figure out a partnership with you of how you can send each other clients. Maybe, but again, if I'm thinking I only have a limited amount of time, what's the most impactful? We make gift baskets. So you go to a dollar store, you go to, I don't know, Michael's, I don't know what's in your market, but you go to the craft store, you go to, make it look pretty. Have somebody that has some taste. Y'all know those people that have taste that can just, they can make that table all staged and look pretty, right? That's the type of person that needs to put these gift baskets together. You put a gift basket together, it has grab and go. Think like what you get on the airplanes. That's what you want in the gift baskets. You want food in the gift baskets. People love food. So you go, like Josh just goes up to Costco once or twice a month and he's there for his family. He's double dipping and he just grabs a bunch of boxes of snacks, essentially, right? Little bags of peanuts, little chocolate things. Don't go healthy. Do not go healthy. That's one of the mistakes people make with this. They're like, I'm a gym. I'm going to give you some protein shakes. Nobody wants these damn protein shakes. They want chocolate. So give them the chocolate. Because here's the strategy with this. I'm not trying to get these people as clients. That's not the play here. So let me map out what this play looks like. So you build this pretty basket. Ideally, you build like 5 of them. So you got a little bit of volume, right? So you build 5 of them. You stick them in the back seat of your car. You drive around for 2 hours on Friday. You already have the businesses picked out. And you go into this business. These are businesses where this play is examples on that list that I talked about, that second list. These are where your clients would maybe work. So I'm thinking everything from corporate headquarters places to, the local doctor's office because I want to maybe get the physician assistant there. I want to get the nurse there, whatever, right? Where do your clients work? I'm going to go in. This is, by the way, this season right here from now till the end of the year is like the best time to do this because you can put a holiday theme to it. But we do this year round. We literally just come in and say, hey, just wanted to drop this off as a gift to your team members. In our case, we're coming at it from new. We're new to town, but you could say, we're over here, a mile down the road. We help, blah, 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 blah. Spit out your ideal avatar. We just wanted to have a gift for you and your employees. In the middle of that gift are a couple trial cards, 7-day passes, 14-day, whatever, right? Some little post, you can use that same postcard, right? Everybody, if I were to go into your gym today, should have postcards with QR codes on them of trial, right? You can use that for the referral stuff. You can use that for this stuff. So in the middle are those. But I'm not like, here's a stack of referral cards. It's, here's some chocolate, stick this in the break room, and by the way, somebody's eating that chocolate, they're like, shit, and just grab it, right? And then maybe they give it to their mom, or they give it to their sister, or they don't do anything with it. I don't know. But I want everybody in my town to have one of those postcards. That's my goal. Everybody in my town will have one of those postcards at some point, whether they get it from a client as a referral, whether they get it because they're visiting, a coffee shop, whatever it may be. I want them to have one of these postcards so that when they're ready, they think of me as the solution. So that's the gift basket strategy. You do that same thing, take that list of businesses that your clients visit. Think high traffic, retail. I'm not a fan of like health, medical businesses for this play because they often don't have enough volume. So think about like where are the businesses, cafes, eateries, high traffic salons where there's 8 chairs going at a time, right? We need traffic here. We also need a spot where people are going to be standing or sitting and waiting. So let's use a coffee shop. If I go to a coffee shop, they all have the same setup, where I order and where I wait. And I want to ideally go in where I wait. I don't want to be where I order. So what am I going in with? I'm going in with, many of you know this play, I love it. It's called a fishbowl. The reason why I call it a fishbowl is because you literally go on Amazon and buy fish bowls, glass fish bowls. It's a raffle. That's all it is, a raffle. You raffle off something. Most times I recommend 1 to 3 months. So you raffle off a 1-month membership, a 2-month membership, an 8-week program, or this or that. You raffle off one spot, you put a deadline on the flyer, don't use QR code, pen and paper. The QR code does not work. We tested it across multiple markets. You want the social proof of a fishbowl, and people have other tickets. They see other tickets in there. Have it out there for 2-3 weeks. Go back, collect it. Those are all leads. One person wins, everybody else gets a consolation prize. About 10% in our experience of those tickets will actually come in your door. Which means if you're doing one fishbowl once a month, this probably ain't going to work. If every week on Friday you block off an hour and drop off 3 fishbowls, so you got 12 fishbowls going in your town at all given times. These like, you can buy these on Amazon right now. They'll be at your house by the time you get back. $10 fishbowls, slips of paper, and a flyer that says enter to win a 3-month membership. There's all your leads. We've had people get 20. We've had people get 50. Somewhere in that range, I would call it a win. If you get less than 20, you probably could have put it in a different spot. You probably could have picked a different place. 20 to 50. And then if you get 10% of those people to come in the door, that's pretty good. All right, last couple things. Workshops. So local marketing, this is where, so if I'm trying to quote partner or JV with my, what I call 1 degree over businesses, my chiros, my massage, my docs, my nurse practitioners, whatever, right? This is how I would partner. I would ask them to come in and do a workshop for my team. If I don't have a team, I would have them do a workshop for my clients. My preference is my team. Second to that, if I don't have a team, I want them doing a workshop for my clients. The entire goal is I'm making their head bigger and saying, hey, you're special. Come talk to my team. Come talk to my clients. But most importantly, they are coming into my ecosystem. So then, naturally, this thing called law of reciprocity will kick in. And so they will walk into your space, maybe they show up 15 minutes early, and you start mingling, and they're like, oh, what's that over there? That's a cool picture of Susie. Who do you have? You know, they just get to know you and your business. And they teach your team. So we do this often with PTs, physical therapists. The reason why I like the team more, for those of you that do have a team, the reason why I like that more is because that's a bigger confidence boost for referrals. If they understand you and your team and who they help, and that they're going to be passing these people off to your team. Also, your team can meet with these people middle of the day where these people like you are usually not busy, as opposed to a client workshop is probably going to have to be kind of evening or weekend mornings, which are not desirable. So get these people in. There's no ask. There's no expectation. I'm just getting them into my ecosystem because once they're in your door, you all know that they will understand better what you do, right? And they are more likely to refer if they're in your door. All right, so that's your workshop play. Another play you can do if you're a party person or you have somebody on your team that's a party person. We did a client appreciation thing at a brewery a couple weeks ago, and we got like 4 clients out of it. And I was like, damn, we totally stopped doing this during the pandemic and never brought it back. And here we are 3 years later, and it was kind of like a light bulb moment. And I was like, wow, we're going to do one of these at least once a quarter in 2026. So all this is, breweries are great, wine places are great, anywhere that there's booze or food, great. Do a little mixer for your clients, tell them to bring their spouse. We bought their first drink, cost us like $300. So this is something really important to understand. You are paying for your clients whether you know it or not. You all have a client acquisition cost. Even if you don't spend any money on paid ads, you have a client acquisition cost. That could be the time that you spend in your labor, that could be your print material. All of us have a client acquisition cost. In this example, my client acquisition cost is the bar tab, $300, right? Just give everybody, literally as they came in, we gave them a little red raffle ticket. Hey, go bring this to the bar, you get a free drink on us. They bought their own food. If they wanted to have 3 drinks, they bought the other 2, whatever. But naturally, depending upon the population you work with, they're going to bring maybe a girlfriend, maybe a spouse, whatever. And again, none of this is like, I think with a lot of the stuff, the more you try to like force it or like really structure or facilitate it, it's kind of a turnoff, right? Rather than like, hey, clients, come out on a Thursday night, have some drinks and apps, and bring your spouse. And naturally, you get 2 or 3 spouses out of it, right? So again, am I doing that for a sports performance market? No. But for Gen Pop, and there's probably a social version of that for every market. Again, go back to who your market is. Let's talk about the last one, and then we'll talk about tracking this for those of you that like numbers. Okay, the tabling events. So I talked last week, I used the analogy of the Girl Scout cookies. Many of you know, if you have ever bought Girl Scout cookies, other than networking, their sales is done by tabling, meaning they stand outside of a place, they say, come buy our cookies. There's these, young kids and the parents all support them, and that's how they sell their cookies. So I was like, what is our version of that? Our version of that is to, again, you can use AI, you can use your local chamber of commerce. This is, by the way, when people say like join the chamber, this is the kind of stuff that I like to use the chamber for. I don't need you to post my logo on your website. I don't care about that. I want a list of every event you're running this year, because now I can be at that event, right? And I show up at that event. Maybe it's an event like this time of year, craft fairs, holiday fairs, whatever. How can I be there physically? We talked about this earlier, like in the room, I can accelerate conversations. How can I get in the room to these events? But even on non-events, something we did during our pre-sale that we plan on doing again is we went to a local coffee shop and we're like, hey, can we park a table out here for 2 hours and we'll buy everybody that walks in coffee? Again, cost us like $300. But all these people walked by, saw a table. We were giving away a 3-month membership. We were new to town, opening up. We're like, hey, we're opening up in town. Here's who we help. And if you know anybody that's a good fit, by the way, here's the ticket, coffee on us today. Coffee's cheap, right? Relatively speaking. So would you rather pay $6 for a cup of coffee or $25 on a Facebook lead? I'd rather pay both, honestly. But if I don't have $25 Facebook lead budget, I need to go pay $6 coffee lead budget. So you can do that anywhere, right? Like we're getting ready to do this for our 3rd location. I'm setting up, this is total off the cuff. We just hashed this out yesterday. I learned that most of our clients have dogs, right? Most of our clients, deep avatar search, most of them are dog lovers. So I found out in this new town that I don't live in, I don't have any reputation in, I found out where does everybody go for the local groomers and pet stores. And that is like a niche of what we're gonna try to go to this pet store, set up a table outside, probably give away like little goodie bags for their dogs. By the way, do you want to enter to win a membership to our new gym, right? So does this take time? Yes. But I think the summary of what I would get across is you either have big ad budget or these strategies. And maybe you find the sweet spot of both, right? But in order to stay competitive next year, they're going to have to exist, okay? So let's make sure we understand that this stuff's working, because one of the things we do want to do is have a runway. So let's picture a plane. Most of you flew here. It has a runway. It has to get off the ground before the end of that runway. But it also does not say, hey, if you're not off the ground in the first 10 yards, abort. Right? And many of you with your strategies, that is what we do. We try something once and then we abort. Didn't work. So there's a sweet spot here. Give it a long enough runway, but if it doesn't work, pivot and pull another strategy out. But you've got to give it a runway. So for example, for fish bowls, I'm going 10, 20 fish bowls easily. That's like 2 days, if that, 2 afternoons, 10 and 10. For referrals, I'm doing a quarter push, like every quarter, big push. Everybody gets a card, right? That would be an example of a runway versus like I handed out 5 cards. That's not a runway. So all I'm looking for when I track, and I'm going to try to make this super simple, is I want a increase not only in leads, but many of you, your most important metric, I'm going to say all of you that run brick and mortar, your most important metric is not actually leads. It is appointments that walk through your door, right? All of you have or should have, a appointment that somebody meets with you to learn about your gym and you sell them into your product, right? That is what you care about. Because if I today handed you 100 leads and none of them came through your door, you just did a boatload of follow-up and the cash register is still 0. So I want to track, did my appointments increase? So if last month I had 10 appointments and this month I have 12 appointments, I don't know if my website is better. I don't know if it's the website. I don't know if it's my Google reviews. I don't know if it's because I'm running ads. I don't know if it's because I'm doing the business visits. I honestly don't know. But I do know that I started doing those things and my appointments went up. So that's the simplest way to look at it is I want to be crystal clear. Here's how many appointments I want every single month. If you are going to track the dollars for those of you that run ads, I recommend a blended CPL. That's a fancy way for saying take how much you spent and divide it by how many leads you have. I do not want to break it down personally. I do not want to break it down into my cost per lead for Facebook was this. My cost per lead for fish bowls was this. I just want to know that I spent $1,000 and I got 100 leads, so my $10 leads. By the way, that's a dream and you're not going to get $10 leads. But my point is, most CPLs for brick and mortars right now are floating between $20 and $30 is what we see right now. Blended. So you might be able to get them a little bit cheaper during some campaigns, during some strategies, but then you have like a website lead that comes in organically, which technically has like a 0 CPL. Right? But when you look at it blended, you're paying about $25 to $30 a lead right now in the marketplace. And at the end of the day, what we're all shooting for, and this is the third number, the last number I want you to track, we are all shooting for our CAC to be less than our first month's payment. And you're like, what is that? Client acquisition cost. All that says is here's how much I spend in marketing and here's how many clients I got. I spent $1,000, I got 10 clients, my CAC is 100. Most of you, your first month's payment is a lot more than $100. So I want you to think about this. Any marketing we talk about, I want you to think about it as a vending machine. So if I stick in $100 and then after 30 days, it spits back out $250, and guess what? We have this amazing thing called recurring revenue, so it's another $250. All of us in this room would do that as much as we can. Yet then I ask how much we're spending on marketing, and you're like, nah, nothing. Like this, the mindset shift has to happen with this stuff where your business will grow once you start taking that $50, injecting into the vending machine, waiting 30 days, and now extracting $150, $200 payment from a client. And now you take that $150, don't go buy a BMW, don't go take your wife out to dinner, take that $150 and put it back in the vending machine. So your ad budget today, Keith, $15, $20 a day. I hope when Keith is sitting here in February, his ad budget is $30 a day. If we're sitting here in November 2026, Keith will be a wealthy gym owner. If he does that. That's the snowball of this. We can't just put in 10, expect back 100, and then take that 100 and go buy a barbell. That's not going to grow the gym. Okay? All right, closing thoughts. Optimize your ads if you are running ads, but we cannot just rely on paid ads. And remember that, what do you call it? Seesaw, right? That seesaw, where if I'm running a ton of paid ads, I can be okay over here, but it's not all the way down. If I'm not running any paid ads, I got to be way up here in my local stuff. And then pick what you're going to focus on. I gave you probably, let's call them 10 strategies. I would pick like 2 to 3 that you can see yourself doing and go all in on those. So if you're going to do the fishbowl strategy, don't go on Amazon today and order 1 fishbowl. Order 10. And make a rule with yourself that says these fish bowls are never going to come back in my gym. Because as soon as they leave this business, I'm going to go drive it over and drop it off at another business. And they never end up back at the gym. That is a strategy I'm going to go deep with. If I'm going to do referrals, I'm going to go print 5,000 postcards. I'm not going to go print 50. So pick a couple that you're going to go deep with. Go all in on it. And then lastly, think of that flywheel, right? Think of that flywheel where it's not just the one thing, right? This flywheel's moving, and the more volume I can push into it, the faster it spins, and on the other side of it is clients.